Hello and welcome to this session on the Business Central AI resources. My name is Peter Boring and I'm the product manager in the developer platform, including the developer tools for Copilot in Business Central. And with me today, I have Enrico Chimetan. He's a senior software engineer on various integrations, including Copilot. So Business Central AI resources is part of the developer tools for Copilot in Business Central that you should already be using if you're building AI features in Business Central. This is also what we call the Microsoft Managed AI resources in the past. And in this release, we're moving BC or Business Central AI resources from private preview, that means by invitation only, to a public preview available for all of you. And we are adding consumption-based direct billing of customers' AI resource use as well. So what is Business Central AI resources? Well, it's a key feature of the developer tools for Copilot in Business Central. Publishers can use the large language models via Microsoft managed Azure OpenAI resources. And that eliminates the needs for the publishers to independently procure and manage the Azure OpenAI subscriptions for customers themselves. You can still bring your own Azure OpenAI subscription though. The Business Central AI resources will be the default and recommended approach, but some publishers or customers might have special needs, and we'll talk more about that later, that require them to use their own Azure OpenAI subscription when running the features in production. And nevertheless, partners still need to use their own subscription when they are prototyping, developing, and testing and troubleshooting in non-production and non-SaaS environments, for instance, in containers. So just to summarize this in an overview, Copilot features in the base application and in other Microsoft extensions, as well as the Business Central platform Copilot features like chat and analysis assist. They use the BC AI resources already today, either directly or through the developer tools if it's AL code-based features. And until now, your application has been using your own Azure OpenAI subscription, unless you were part of the private preview, of course, but that was not in production also. So what changes now is that going forward, the recommendation is that your Copilot features uses the Business Central AI resources in production environments as well. And so you see this will sort of be the norm that you call through the toolkit and access the Business Central AI resources. You can still use your own Azure OpenAI resource subscription, as we talked about before, but again, mostly or recommended only for development or for special needs. So what are the benefits of using the Business Central AI resources? Well, first of all, you can take advantage of reduced operational overhead. So that means that you avoid the need to manage or handle the infrastructure yourself. So that could be, updates, monitoring, troubleshooting, or maintenance of the Azure OpenAI subscription. That allows you to free up your resources to add value in core business operations and IP for the customers instead. It also simplifies the onboarding of building AI-based features in Business Central, so you can quickly integrate these capabilities in your solutions. It also gives an improved reliability because someone, that means us, will proactively ensure that resources are scaled and throttled and have load balancing and fault tolerance measures, etc., that ensures a consistent performance during peak demand among customers. It also gives a more streamlined experience for customers because they will have a more seamless AI resource management. It's going to be the same across all different ISV solutions that a customer uses. And also the customers will have a unified consumption-based billing experience across ISV solutions. And lastly, it will also give you the benefit of enhanced security compliance. So when you use the Business Central AI resources, there will be built-in compliance measures and governance that helps protecting against harmful and malicious content and just general compliance with data residency. So maybe, Enrico, can you talk a little bit more about those last safety measures?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Peter. So I'm going to talk about, again, what means content safety for us. So this is, of course, something that we apply to our own calls to Azure OpenAI through the Microsoft Business Central AI resources. But this will also apply to you the moment you start using them. And we have a very optimized setup where we use a blocking policy. So if you have set up before your Azure OpenAI subscription, you know that you can have policies applied on a subscription level. That means basically that you decide what type of content and what level of filtering should be applied to the calls to the large language model. So we use a blocking policy, as I mentioned, which means we actually block calls that trigger content safety filters. And we have all the filters about hate violence, sexual content, self-harm that are kind of the default that Azure OpenAI offers. But we include also some jailbreak detection, and we have already some basic cross-prompt injection attack protection, but we have in the plans to have some even better protection. So this is actually a point that I want to stress, which is these are the same policies and the same content safety that we use at Microsoft, which means is what we think is the safest for our customers and also is applied to what you are doing by using the toolkit. So we're just using the same. And one point that I always like to stop for a second on is this is all about the content safety, but related to security and privacy, we get a lot of questions, especially from customers, but also from some of you. And the questions are, okay, we are using the Microsoft AI, Toolkit AI resources, but is Microsoft going to use this data to train models, for example? Or is this data going to be saved somewhere? And the answer is, we care about your data, and your data is your data. So no, we're not using data to train models. We're not using data, for example, to improve Microsoft services and such. We just use it for the purpose that you and that your code needs. So you can read more, of course, on the Azure OpenAI website, and we just comply to, of course, all the Azure OpenAI guidelines. So let's move to the next section and see how you can actually use the Business Central AI resources versus bring your own Azure OpenAI subscription in the toolkit. So first of all, you can find samples in case you have not yet started developing your own Copilot feature in our aka.ms/bctech. We have a full folder, which is samples Azure OpenAI, which contains a few different samples you can have a look at and you can get started with. These are already ready to be deployed in your test environment, just to see how the code works and to have a look at how you can get started from something. These are already using the Microsoft Business Central AI Toolkit resources. And the point in the code that is doing this is this exact line of code, which is set manage resource authorization. This is also, as Peter said, our recommended way of connecting to the large language model in the backend. So you will see this line of code in our samples, and you should use this line of code in your own features. And as you can see, it requires 2 additional parameters, which are the second and third, which is the Azure OpenAI account name and Azure OpenAI API key. So for the moment being, we still require you as a partner to have an active Azure OpenAI subscription. And this is mostly to make sure that you are allowed to use Azure OpenAI and you are compliant and have accepted the Azure OpenAI terms of usage. This is just a requirement that we have, but only for checking that you have access. We don't actually consume your resources. So that also means you don't really need to have deployed models, which also cost money just to have, even if you don't use them. You just need to have an approved subscription, and that's enough. As you can see, also the last parameter here is getGPT for our latest, which is like the deployment name that you're going to use, which aka you can also call the model name. We offer a few different models, and you can find them in the Azure AOAI deployments code unit. As Peter mentioned, we also support bringing your own Azure OpenAI subscription, which is needed when you are developing, for example, or also troubleshooting and so on, and also for very specific cases, in case there is some feature that we don't yet support in the Business Central AI Toolkit resources. In that case, you just need, instead of the function I showed in the previous slide, you need to use this set authorization function instead. So I mentioned a few times that when you're developing, you need to use your own subscription, and then you need, or we would like you to move to the Microsoft subscription when you deploy your solution to production. But how does this look like in code? Because a question we get a lot is, do I need then to have two types or two versions of code, one for testing and one for deploying to production? And the answer is you don't necessarily need that. So you can actually have them in the same code. And the way we recommend you do this is you just, while you're developing in your Docker container, or for example, in your on-premise test environment, you can just use the bring your own subscription. And you can do this with the switch based on whether you are in SaaS infrastructure or not. So as you can see in this code sample, I am using this environment information code unit for that purpose. We have also collected a few questions that we got from some of you in the last few events. For example, in the event we had last month with a few partners, just specifically about AI. And we just want to go through them just to make sure that some of the most commonly asked questions are covered. For example, are my calls using the toolkit staying in my geography? And the answer is, whenever possible, yes. So we as Microsoft, of course, commit to data privacy. So your data will stay within geography if there is the option. In some cases, though, we don't have an Azure OpenAI deployment or data center in the same geography. In these cases, the administrator of the tenant can just decide to not allow calls across geography, and they can just turn it off from a centralized place, which is the Copilot and agent capabilities page in Business Central. Also, we quickly mentioned that there are additional system prompts when you're using the toolkit. So this is part of our content safety in general, AI safety measures. And we append a meta prompt, as we call it, to your own prompts. So these actually might change slightly the behavior between your testing in on-premise environment and your deployment to production. So we always recommend that you do all the development and testing on-premise with your own Azure OpenAI subscription, and then you do thorough testing on kind of sandbox environment before you actually start deploying this to your customers. Because again, the output using Business Central AI resources might be, in some cases, slightly different. One more thing you might have noticed is that there are new models coming out all the time from Azure OpenAI, and we use always the newest model that we think fits the purpose, which means sometimes models are deprecated. When that happens, you receive, if you have set up developer telemetry on your extension, you receive a telemetry signal that tells you on your App Insights subscription that one of the models is being deprecated. So then you should move to the new model and test that your prompts and that your setup still works with the new model. We have some slightly stricter deadlines with the model deprecations than we have with AL deprecation. So just make sure you do the testing before the model is actually deprecated. Otherwise, we might just move you to the new model if the old one is no longer available. So we will not break your feature. We will try to move it to the new model. But again, different models might behave differently. So your feature might just not work as well with the new one. Another question we get a lot is whether you can use the data source capabilities that Azure OpenAI exposes from our toolkit. That is currently not possible, neither by using the AI resources from the toolkit, nor by bringing your own Azure OpenAI subscription. Every time we receive this question, we try to understand what the use case of the partner was. And in most of the cases, we actually found other ways to basically reach the same effect that didn't really need data sources. But if you think you have a use case where this is actually needed, please let us know and add it to aka.ms/bcideas. And the last frequently asked question I have is whether we can expose non-OpenAI models in our toolkit, for example, DeepSeek or other models that have come out recently. And the answer is we don't support that currently, and that's because we only expose to you partners capabilities that we, as Microsoft, use. And that's because, of course, we want to keep them tested and make sure that they work before we actually give them to the partners. So currently, no, but you can, of course, once again, suggest this on aka.ms/bcideas and let us know what is your use case. And with this, I'll pass it on to Peter again to talk about billing.
Thank you, Enrico. Yeah, let's talk about billing of AI resources. That calls to LLMs in your solutions. If you're using your own Azure OpenAI subscription, you'll likely run into some challenges with managing billing across your customers. So let's imagine that we have a customer here who is running on an environment with multiple ISV solutions deployed. So we have 3 ISV solutions here, so they're from 3 different ISVs. And then these ISVs have Copilot features in their solutions, all of them. So they each have their own Copilot, Azure OpenAI subscription that they manage for their solution, which means that they need to charge each the customer for the customer's consumption in their solution, right? So that means that the customers will get 3 different billing experiences out of this, which is not that convenient for the customers to handle. Likewise, hopefully, an ISV has multiple customers, maybe hundreds of customers, but likely only a single shared Azure OpenAI subscription, because they're reusing the same app source, and you connect to one instance in that. And that means that when many of these different users are actually consuming the resources in the ISV's own subscription, the ISV needs to track that consumption and make sure that they can split or bill the customers individually based on each customer's use of the Copilot features in the ISV's IP. So that gives an overhead of management. And maybe they even need, the ISV have so much success that they even need to scale their Azure OpenAI subscription. So they have to sort of manage that with the Azure Load Balancer or the Azure Traffic Manager or regional instances, etc. So there can be a lot of management involved in supporting customers with an ISV subscription. Let's have a look at how billing works when using Business Central AI resources. So this will be a consumption-based approach where the customers will bill directly from Microsoft. However, the details of that is not ready at the time of this recording, but keep an eye out for details after launch to learn more about how the billing works. So let's have a summary of the differences between the Business Central AI resources and when you bring your own Azure OpenAI subscription. If we look at deployment and environments first, then when you use the Business Central AI resources, Microsoft manages those resources, but it also means that it's available in SaaS only and production environments only. If you bring your own Azure OpenAI subscription, you must handle everything around deployment of the models, keep them up to date, take care of regions, geography, data residency, etc. You will be charged for models even if you're not using them. But it also means that you can use this both in SaaS but also in non-SaaS environments. And so this will still be recommended for development and testing in your sort of on-premise and container setups. If we look at the differences when it comes to models, then when you're using the Business Central AI resources, the production-ready models that are available are GPT-4o and 4o Mini. We will likely add more in the future, but those are the ones that are available at the time of recording. We will notify you if you opt into telemetry about when new models are coming and old models are obsoleted. Also, at the time of the recording, we do not support embeddings, although we have plans in probably next release in a half a year to a year's time frame to provide some semantic search capabilities that are similar to embeddings. If you bring your own Azure OpenAI subscription, you have a choice of all the models available there, whether they are from the OpenAI, so it could be O1 or O3 Mini, the reasoning models, but it could also be DeepSeek or Gemini or other models available there. But it also means that you manage those models and you need to follow deprecation timelines, etc. You can there do embeddings and fine-tuning depending on your model. And as Enrico mentioned, in regardless of whether you use the Business Central AI resources or your own subscription, it's not possible to bring your own data sources to, for instance, use Azure AI Search for retrieval augmented generation. If we look at the major differences in responsible AI, for the Business Central AI resources, as Enrico mentioned, we have the content filters and some additions to the system prompts. When you have your own Azure OpenAI subscription, you also have content filters, but you have more choice on how to set those up. We still apply, even for your subscription, some system prompt mechanism for that in SaaS. But of course, if you're running in on-premise, you need to write your own management of that or handling of that. And then when we talk about billing, then when you use the Microsoft Central AI resources, Microsoft will charge the customers directly when they use AI based on their consumption. Customers will be able to track usage, set limits, and get a single detailed invoice across all of the ISVs that are using Business Central AI resources for their Copilot features. Then what you can do, or probably will do, hopefully, is that you charge your IP the way you do it today, right? So you can use the AppSource transactability feature, or you can have your own custom licensing for your applications. If you bring or use your own Azure OpenAI subscription customers, you need to track everything around consumption, and you need to manage the billing across customers. So to end this session, I just want to raise the awareness that on YouTube, our YouTube channel, we actually have a number of different playlists, and one of the playlists is on extending Copilot in Business Central. So that covers all of the capabilities that you have for building Copilot features inside of Business Central, how you use the developer tools for building prompt dialogues, how you do tests, etc. So if you haven't worked with building Copilot features in Business Central, I recommend that you go there and watch those recordings. Thank you for joining this session.
Thank you.